Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Hamas deputy chief was a key player until death in Beirut attack. With the killing of Saleh al-Arouri, it appears that Israel has struck in the heart of Hezbollah territory. So what will Iran do? US quietly reaches agreement with Qatar to keep operating largest military base in Middle East. France's Macron calls for restraint after Israeli killing of Hamas deputy. Who is Saleh al-Arouri, the senior Hamas leader killed in Beirut? Hamas deputy chief was a key player until death in Beirut attack. South China Morning Post. Saleh al-Arouri, deputy Hamas leader, was reportedly killed in a drone strike in Beirut on Tuesday. Arouri was seen as a key player in the Hamas movement, masterminding its operations in the West Bank from exile in Syria, Turkey, Qatar and Lebanon. According to Israel, Arouri was behind the kidnapping and killing of 3 Israeli teenagers in the West Bank in 2014. This act led to a 7-week Israeli assault on Gaza that resulted in the deaths of 2,100 Palestinians. Islamic Jihad, an allied group, has vowed to seek revenge for Arouri's killing. With the killing of Saleh al-Arouri, it appears that Israel has struck in the heart of Hezbollah territory. So what will Iran do? ABC. The recent killing of Hamas leader, Abu al-Walid al-Mahdi al-Masri, in Lebanon raises questions about potential escalation of conflict between Israel and Hamas. The killing occurred in Hezbollah territory, who may be affronted by the violation of their territory. Both Israel and Hezbollah are unlikely to want a new war. However, Israel prefers targeted killings over full-scale war with Hezbollah, although Hezbollah is a stronger military opponent than Hamas. Hezbollah has access to more weapons than Hamas, with no restrictions on imports from Iran, and is believed to have 150,000 missiles in southern Lebanon ready to be fired into Israel if needed. US quietly reaches agreement with Qatar to keep operating largest military base in Middle East. CNN. The US has reached an agreement to extend its military presence in Qatar for another decade, according to 4 anonymous officials. The deal is yet to be announced publicly and marks an extension of a 2013 agreement that allows the US to operate out of the Al-Udeid air base. The base, which is the largest US military installation in the Middle East, is currently home to over 10,000 American troops. Qatar has recently been involved in the release of US hostages in both Gaza and Venezuela. The country is also seen as an important mediator between the US and other US enemies. France's Macron calls for restraint after Israeli killing of Hamas deputy. RFI. A senior Hamas official, Hassan al-Arouri, has been killed in an Israeli drone strike in Lebanon. Al-Arouri was a key figure in Hamas's armed wing, the Qassam Brigades, and had been acting as an intermediary between Hamas and Hezbollah. Protests broke out in the occupied West Bank following news of his death. Hamas condemned the killing, while Hezbollah accused Israel of violating Lebanon's sovereignty. French President Emmanuel Macron, who spoke with an Israeli minister, called for restraint and warned against escalation, particularly in Lebanon. The Israeli army has said it is prepared for any scenario following the strike. Who is Saleh al-Arouri, the senior Hamas leader killed in Beirut? New York Times. Hamas leader Saleh al-Arouri was assassinated in a suburb of Beirut on August 23. Al-Arouri had been accused by Israel of masterminding attacks on the country, and had helped forge a closer relationship between Hamas and Hezbollah. In 2014, Israel said al-Arouri had orchestrated the killing of 3 Israeli teenagers in the West Bank. The U.S. State Department had offered a reward of up to $5 million for information on al-Arouri. American déjà vu. Foreign policy. The outcome of the 2024 U.S. presidential election will have significant implications for global multilateralism and foreign policy. The leading contenders, President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, represent 2 radically different visions for the future world order. Biden's approach prioritizes partnerships and reforming multilateral institutions, while Trump's approach rejects multilateralism and embraces transactional policies. A second Trump term would likely result in the collapse of the U.S. commitment to multilateralism, a reversal of progress on addressing climate change, and a return to unilateralism in dealing with China. Europe, which has benefited greatly from the US-led multilateral order, would be particularly vulnerable to the impacts of a second Trump term, as NATO and transatlantic security commitments could be abandoned. Some countries, such as China and Russia, may welcome the fracturing of the multilateral order, while others, like India, may seek greater autonomy in a world free from US influence. It is crucial for other nations to strategize and prepare for the potential outcomes of the election in order to effectively harness US power and advance their own interests in a changing global landscape. Israel-Gaza war live updates, IDF on high alert after strike in Beirut kills senior Hamas leader. Washington Post. Hamas has reported the death of one of its senior leaders, Saleh al-Arouri, in a blast in a Beirut suburb. The militant group blamed Israel for the attack, while Hezbollah, the Iranian-backed militant group in Lebanon, said it would respond with punishment. Israel has not claimed responsibility for the attack, but a U.S. defense official said Israel was behind the strike. The Israel Defense Forces said its troops are prepared for any scenario. Hezbollah's leader is expected to give a speech that may offer some indication of their plan. Global markets. Asian shares extend global sell-off as rate hopes ebb. Yahoo! Asian shares fell on January 3 following a global sell-off, as optimism regarding early and aggressive U.S. interest rate cuts waned. The MSCI Asia-Pacific Shares Index fell 1.3% after a 1% fall on January 2. The dollar remained steady at 102.1 after rising 0.8% against peers to a two-week high on January 2. Can 2024 revive the world's democratic spirit? Financial Times. The year 2024 will see a record number of elections take place globally, with approximately 2 billion people having the opportunity to vote. However, despite the significance of these elections, there are growing concerns about the state of democracy worldwide. The quality of democracy has declined in many countries over the past few years, and surveys indicate that support for democracy among younger generations is waning. The rise of illiberalism, the weakening of independent institutions, and disillusionment with the political system are contributing to this crisis of democracy. In the upcoming elections, different types of electoral cultures will be on display. Some countries, such as Belarus, Russia, and Rwanda, will hold elections that are little more than a charade, with rulers ensuring overwhelming victories for themselves. Other countries, like Iran, Tunisia, and Bangladesh, will allow opposition parties to compete but not to win. The most significant threat to democracy, however, comes from countries where leaders are elected in free and fair elections but then implement illiberal policies, as seen in Hungary under Viktor Orbán. Furthermore, young people are becoming increasingly disillusioned with democracy, seeing it as ineffective and failing to address their concerns. This is particularly true in the face of pressing issues like climate change and technological change, which have not been adequately addressed by previous generations. The challenge for democracies is to address these concerns and engage young people in the political process. Overall, the state of democracy in 2024 is concerning. While the number of elections may be a testament to the spread of political freedom, the rise of illiberalism, the erosion of independent institutions, and the disillusionment of younger generations pose significant threats to democracy. It is clear that more needs to be done to strengthen and protect democratic principles and institutions. Israel pledges to protect tech startups from effects of Hamas war. Financial Times. Israel's innovation agency, the Israel Innovation Authority, is determined to protect its technology startups from the impact of the war with Hamas. The agency has set aside $100 million to help early-stage companies that are at risk of running out of money due to the war. Dror Bin, the head of the Israel Innovation Authority, said that they are prepared to provide more funding if needed. The Israeli high-tech sector plays a crucial role in the country's economy, accounting for 18% of economic output and 12% of jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, Sixers and Sixettes, it's your favorite Six Doctor, here to bring you the latest news from 6 Degrees. Today, we have a mix of international stories, from the killing of a key Hamas leader in Lebanon to the U.S. extending its military presence in Qatar. But before we dive into the details, let me introduce myself. I'm the Sixth Doctor, your friendly observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to provide you with witty, light-hearted analysis of the news. So let's get started. First up, we have the killing of Saleh al-Arouri, the deputy Hamas leader, in a drone strike in Beirut. Arouri was a key player in the Hamas movement, responsible for orchestrating operations in the West Bank. His death has raised questions about potential escalation between Israel and Hamas. But what caught my attention is the involvement of Hezbollah, who may be affronted by the violation of their territory. Israel and Hezbollah are both unlikely to want a new war, but Hezbollah is a stronger military opponent than Hamas, with access to more weapons. So, what will Iran do? It's a sticky situation, my friends. Next, we have the news that the U.S. has quietly reached an agreement with Qatar to extend its military presence in the country. The Al-Udeid Air Base, the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East, will continue to host over 10,000 American troops. Qatar has recently been involved in the release of U.S. hostages, making it an important mediator between the U.S. and its enemies. Looks like the U.S. is keen on keeping its foothold in the region, my friends. Moving on, we have French President Emmanuel Macron calling for restraint after the Israeli killing of the Hamas deputy leader. Protests broke out in the West Bank following the news, with Hamas condemning the killing and Hezbollah accusing Israel of violating Lebanon's sovereignty. Macron warned against escalation, particularly in Lebanon. It's a delicate situation, my friends, and it seems like everyone is on edge. Now, let's talk about the upcoming US presidential election in 2024. It's a battle between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, two radically different visions for the future world order. Biden prioritizes partnerships and multilateralism, while Trump rejects it in favor of transactional policies. A second Trump term could result in the collapse of the U.S. commitment to multilateralism, impacting climate change and relations with China. Europe would be particularly vulnerable, as NATO and transatlantic security commitments could be abandoned. So, my friends, it's a crucial election with global implications. Shifting gears, we have the news of the killing of a Hamas leader in Beirut, sparking tensions between Israel and Hezbollah. Hamas blamed Israel for the attack, while Hezbollah threatened to respond with punishment. Israel has not claimed responsibility, but a U.S. defense official said Israel was behind the strike. It's a tense situation, my friends, and we'll have to see how it unfolds. Lastly, let's talk about the global markets. Asian shares fell following a global sell-off, as optimism regarding early and aggressive U.S. interest rate cuts waned. It's a roller coaster ride, my friends, and it seems like the markets are not quite sure which way to go. And that's a wrap, my friends. We've covered a range of topics today, from the killing of a key Hamas leader to the upcoming U.S. presidential election. Now, it's time for you to join the discussion. What are your thoughts on these news stories? Do you have any questions for the Sixth Doctor? Share your ideas, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.